So this is my second video update for this Monday evening here in Athens, Greece. And let's talk about Biden's trip to Kiev to visit Zelensky. And so the story goes that Biden, in secret on Sunday, traveled to Poland. And then from Poland, he went to Kiev, and this was all done on the down low, in secret, except for the fact that we now know from various mainstream media sources that Jake Sullivan contacted the Russians before Biden traveled to Kiev in order to make sure that there was no type of miscalculation as Biden was visiting Kiev. No missile strikes or anything like that. And so, in essence, Biden had to get the Russians' green light before traveling to Kiev. The responsible thing to do. I mean, makes sense, right? But this is a real PR optics disaster for the Biden White House. And he has really boxed himself in with his Project Ukraine. And this is a big win for the Russians. And I will explain why. It's a big win on many levels for Russia, and it's a big L on many levels for the Biden White House. And even for Zelensky as well, because Biden did not bring the long-range missiles and the F-16s that Zelensky was hoping for. All he got was a $500 million U.S. military aid commitment. That's it, $500 million, which is going to be used for javelins, HIMARS missiles, and stuff like that. So why is this a huge PR disaster for the Biden White House? Well, if I was advising Biden on this idea of a trip to Ukraine, the first thing I would have said is, listen up, Joe Bidenopoulos. Here's my take on this. Don't go to this 1-year anniversary event in Poland. That would have been my first advice to Biden. Don't go. Send Kamala. Don't go to this thing, because if you go to this event in Poland, then you've pretty much committed yourself to having to visit Kiev and to visit Zelensky, because if you go to Poland and don't visit Kiev, then all of the EU partners who you've forced in a way to escalate with you in Ukraine, and all of those EU partners who you've kind of forced in a way to also visit Zelensky in Kiev, well, they're going to ask the obvious question, well, you came to Poland, Biden. How come you're not going to visit Zelensky in Kiev like we did? That's going to be the first question they're going to ask. And if you don't visit Kiev, they're going to start to get nervous. So by agreeing to go to Poland for this 1-year commemoration event, you're going to have to commit yourself to go to Kiev. And so my first advice to Biden would have been, don't go, send Kamala. Now, by sending Kamala, EU leaders would probably also get nervous by sending Kamala to this 1-year Ukraine-Russia conflict commemoration event. But, you can squirm your way out of that one. You can make up some excuse or something like that and then tell your EU partners, don't worry, I'm still committed to Project Ukraine. I want all you guys in Europe to send more money and send more weapons to Zelensky, but I can't go. I'm going to send Kamala because I've got other stuff that I need to do. You would have been able to kind of squirm your way out of that deal. But by committing to go to Poland, you committed yourself to going to Kiev, and that's a PR optics disaster. And here's why Biden going to Kiev is and was a PR disaster. Well, let's go back to the fact that Jake Sullivan, the Biden White House, had to communicate with Moscow to make sure that you had no missiles flying around Kiev while the President of the United States was visiting Zelensky. Right away, the optics are that the Biden White House has to get the green light from Russia. That makes the Biden White House look weak. That makes the President of the United States look weak. When the President of the United States visited U.S. air bases in, I don't know, say Iraq or Afghanistan or something like that, he doesn't get permission from Saddam or from the Taliban or whatever. The U.S. president doesn't get permission. The U.S. president shows up. And that's why the president usually shows up at a U.S. air base, or usually shows up when things have stabilized in a country where the U.S. is involved in some sort of conflict or regime change or whatever. Because you don't want the U.S. president having to liaise with the, let's just say the opposition, the enemy, whatever you want to call them, in this case Russia. You don't want the U.S. to have to communicate with Russia to kind of get the okay to visit a country that allegedly the U.S. is saying is victorious. And here we run into another optics PR problem for Biden's visit to Ukraine. Biden has been going on for 12 months with the narrative that Ukraine is winning the conflict. Well, if Ukraine is winning the conflict, why do you need Russia's permission to visit Kiev? Biden is pretty much admitting that Russia controls the airspace, or to a very large degree has sufficient control over the airspace in Kiev. You admit to that. You admit that you're not so sure about the air defense of Ukraine, including the Patriot missile system that you supposedly gave to Zelensky or set up in Kiev. It means that you're unsure about your own missile defense or Kiev's missile defense. It shows that instead of Ukraine being in control and the United States and the collective West, because Ukraine is the proxy, it shows the exact opposite. It shows that Russia is actually the party in this conflict that is in control, because they're the ones that you have to clear things with before you visit Kiev. It also exposes the fact that all collective West leaders that visited Kiev probably got the okay from Russia. But those leaders are not important. Those leaders are not the president of the United States. So when Morawiecki or Ursula or Trudeau visit Kiev, okay, they call up Russia and they say, look, we're going to be traveling by train to Kiev, so, don't send missiles our way. And Moscow says, okay, but no one makes a big fuss about it because, it's Trudeau or it's Schultz or it's Ursula, whatever. But, you're Biden. You're the president of the U.S. So it is in a way an admission that things are going poorly for Ukraine in this conflict, and that Russia is the party that controls the airspace in Ukraine. They're the ones that give the permission at the end of the day. They're the ones that are giving the permission to the president of the United States to travel to Kiev. You see, this is not a mission accomplished moment. Not that went well for George W. Bush, but This is more of an act of desperation. That's what this is more like to me. It's showing that Biden is obligated to go to Ukraine in order to hold things together, not because things are going well and the collective West is on top of things and Zelensky has everything under control. This was a trip that Biden had to make, was forced to make. The US president was forced to make this trip because things are unraveling. And so he had to go to Kiev in order to show that the US is still supporting Zelensky, and therefore the EU partners should not get nervous and they should continue to support Zelensky. But this has the reverse effect. This makes Biden look weak. This shows that the US is not in control of things, and that the European leaders should be worried. The only way for the US president to go to Kiev is if he were to go there to declare victory. That should be the only reason. And the US president should not ask for permission from anybody. He should just show up because everything is under control, man. I don't need permission to show up because I've got a handle on everything. We control the airspace. Everything is calm, and I can now show up and declare victory. I can be the victor. That's obviously not the case. So PR-wise, this is very, very, very bad. And for the Russians, this is great. They can now show the Russian people. They can show the Russian people, look, here's the president of the United States visiting Zelensky. You see, we really are fighting a war against the U.S. They can show the footage from that to the Russian people, to the domestic audience. They can, they now know that Biden is completely committed to Ukraine. I mean, he's emotionally overinvested in Ukraine because he feels that he has to visit Ukraine in order to keep this thing going. As things are looking very, very bad for Zelensky, he has to show up there with the permission of the Russians in order to show his EU partners that the U.S. is not going to ditch Ukraine as long as it takes, right? He has to actually show up to Ukraine so he can deliver the line as long as it takes, so that this whole united front of the collective West in support of Ukraine doesn't crack. So the Russians, they've got Biden boxed in. I mean, they've got him really boxed in. They know now that Biden is absolutely 100% emotionally invested in Ukraine, and that's not a good position to be in. If you're a world leader and you're making huge decisions, hell, if you're the CEO of a company, or if you're a manager and you're making decisions based on emotion, then things are not good. You're going to probably make very bad decisions. And now the Russians, they've got them. They understand exactly how emotionally invested Biden has become in Ukraine. He should not have gone. He should have sat this one out. He should have sent Kamala. And he goes with Jake Sullivan. So now the Russians, they've got a very clear understanding now. Biden, Sullivan, they have a very clear picture now as to how involved the Biden White House has become in Ukraine, and this follows on top of the Seymour Hersh Nord Stream revelation, which shows that Biden is is really making very bad decisions, very bad emotional decisions, to the point of sabotaging pipelines of allies. This also plays very badly for Biden on the domestic front. Very badly, because American citizens, what they're going to say is, the people of Ohio, what they're going to say is, Biden could travel 3,000 miles to visit, 3,000, 5,000, however many miles to visit Zelensky, but he can't travel 300 miles to Ohio, to East Palestine, to see how the people of Ohio are dealing with this ecological disaster. But he can travel to Zelensky. That is not going to play well with the domestic audience, and the Russians know that. And I've already seen so many posts on Twitter which say exactly that, which point to the fact that Biden, instead of traveling to Ohio, decided to travel to Kiev first. He should have at least traveled to Ohio first before he got on a plane to go to Kiev. I mean, dude, that was a really, really bad move. So, look, my thoughts on this are that this is a sign of weakness. This is a sign of desperation. This is not a good look for the President of the United States. Not a good look for Biden. It shows that he's absolutely emotionally overinvested in Ukraine. That's not a good position for the President of the United States to be in. And for the Russians, this was an absolute gift. That's why they have no problem green-lighting this trip of Biden's to Kiev. For them, this was a big win. Now it shows that as long as Biden is president, and me and Alexander talked about this on a video that we just posted on the Duran channel, it shows that as president, Biden is incapable of walking away from Kiev. So that means that as long as Biden is president, the U.S., the Biden White House, is going to continue to be at war with Russia. But the Russians they've flushed this out now for the whole world to see, and this is going to play very well with the global South, with the 80% of the world that is not the collective West and is not at war with Russia. They're also going to look at this. Brazil and India and leaders all over the world are going to look at this, and they're going to say, man, the U.S. president, he's really in deep. He's really boxed in when it comes to Ukraine. So the right decision would have been for the Biden White House to not go to this ceremony, this 1-year anniversary in Poland. They should have sat it out. They should have sent Kamala. She was in Munich anyway, so just put her on a train or a plane or whatever. Send her to Poland. Send her to Kiev if you have to as well. Who cares? Send her though to Poland. Have her take part in this anniversary and make up some excuse that Biden couldn't attend because he has X, Y, and Z to deal with. Actually, the best thing would have been Biden cannot attend because he has to deal with the problems in Ohio. He has to look after the American people and provide his support to the citizens of East Palestine. Now that would have been a winning excuse. That would have played well to the domestic audience, to the U.S. citizen. And it would have been the perfect excuse for EU partners. They would have said, okay, well, he has to go to this environmental disaster, and he has to take care of that. So we're going to get Kamala instead of Biden at this 1 year anniversary of the conflict in Ukraine, which is going to take place, I think, in Warsaw or something like that. I mean, that would have been the right PR move to make, but they can't do it. All of them, Nuland, Blinken, Sullivan, Biden, they're they're very, very emotionally invested in Ukraine. Very emotionally invested in this. And it's not Ukraine, they're emotionally invested in the destruction of Russia. And this is consuming them. And this is a dangerous place to be, but this was a big mistake by the Biden White House, in my opinion. So, and at the end of the day, he delivered a big L to Zelensky. He didn't strengthen Zelensky's position. He actually weakened it, because what is Zelensky getting? 500 million. There you go. He's not getting the fighter jets. He's not getting more tanks. He's not getting the long-range missiles. He's getting 500 million in stuff that the Russians are just going to destroy. And Biden, he even said as much. He even admitted as much in his press conference. He said in his press conference, with Zelensky by his side, he said that first he said that the Russian economy is in tatters, is not doing well, which is kind of insane. You would think that Biden, even though Biden has Biden is used to lying a lot. He has a tendency to lie a lot and to exaggerate on things. That's just Biden. That's the Biden that we've become used to over the last 50 years. But you would think that even Biden, the president of the United States, would have been briefed on the Russian economy and would have gotten, I don't know, say the IMF's report on the Russian economy. But he's out there talking about how Russia's economy is in tatters and Russia is isolated. Another lie from Biden. Russia is very far from isolated, and I think everyone has accepted that. Everyone can accept that. Even Zelensky said as much. I mean, Zelensky was basically, in his press conference, he said that China, that he's going to put forth some peace proposal, and he's hoping that China will align with Ukraine. Because if it doesn't align with Ukraine, if it aligns with Russia, then Zelensky said there's going to be World War III, something like that. So that's an admission from Zelensky that China is absolutely not aligned with the collective West and is aligned with Russia. But Biden is talking about Russia being isolated. That was also a big lie. But what I wanted to get to is that Biden, he said in his press conference that the U.S. has handed over something like 700 tanks, thousands of artillery, and millions of ammo. Anyway, he gave this huge list of stuff that the U.S. has given to Ukraine since the beginning of the conflict. And in Biden's mind, it was about showcasing the U.S.'s support for Ukraine because we've given them all these things. But when you take a step back and you listen to what Biden admitted during the press conference, what Biden really did is he admitted that Russia has destroyed $120 billion worth of U.S. aid to Ukraine because the collective West is in a panic trying to find ammo and tanks and fighter jets and whatever. They're trying to find all these things for Ukraine now. These are things that EU members don't want to give up either. They don't want to give up their tanks. They don't want to give up their fighter jets. That's obvious. They don't. Germany doesn't want to give it up. Poland doesn't want to give it up. The UK isn't giving up their Typhoon fighter jets. The Leopard tank thing has been a complete bust. Instead of 340 tanks, Ukraine is going to get something like 50 by April. That's it. And we're getting reports now that these tanks are not even like in fighting condition. They have to be like fixed up and refurbished and God knows what else. Borrell is begging for tanks that EU member states have sitting in their warehouse collecting dust. That's what Borrell said the other day. Please, he's like, please give Ukraine even your useless tanks. So Biden admitted that we've given Ukraine all of these weapons and Russia's destroyed these weapons. That's pretty much what Biden admitted to. I'm like, why are you giving the list of all the things you've given Ukraine? You're just highlighting the list of all the things that Russia has destroyed. I just don't understand what type of What kind of PR and communications team does Biden have? I just don't get it. I don't understand why they went through this. This could have all just been avoided. What a disaster this was. What a disaster. Biden just should have stayed at home and he should have gone to Ohio. That's what he should have done. That was the trip that Biden should have made, to Ohio. That's why you have Kamala, so you can send her to stuff like this. Right? He delivered a big L to Zelensky, because Zelensky now has to explain why he couldn't deliver the goods of F-16s and long-range missiles. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the Biden trip to Kiev. Let's do a couple of clown worlds. The first clown world is Lexus and Vovan. Vovan and Lexus, I believe that's the proper way to pronounce the prankster dynamic duo. And they called Angela Merkel today. And I haven't seen all of I haven't really gone into detail to read about all the things that they got Merkel to admit to, but they pretended to be Petro Poroshenko, the former Ukraine president. And from what I understand, they got Merkel to once again admit that the Minsk agreements were a farce, that Germany and the collective West, Germany, France, Ukraine, they were never going to enforce the Minsk agreements, and it was all about buying time for the Ukraine military so they could rearm and eventually fight Russia. So we got that out of the telephone call, the prank telephone call between Poroshenko and Merkel. So that was an interesting bit of news from today. And I think the most interesting part about this prank call with Merkel is that Vovan and Lexus, they once again used Poroshenko. They played the character of Poroshenko. That's 3 Poroshenko prank calls in a row. We have Bolton speaking with fake Poroshenko. We had Esper, the former U.S. Defense Secretary, speaking with fake Poroshenko. And we now have Angela Merkel speaking with a fake Poroshenko. They fall for it every time. Every time they fall for it. Man. I don't know what to say. And Angela Merkel, she was chancellor when Poroshenko was president. So you would think that Merkel would recognize Poroshenko's voice. I mean, she's dealt with Poroshenko, but nope, she fell for it. Incredible. If you're a collective West leader and someone calls you with a Russian accent and they claim to be Poroshenko or Putin or Zelensky or Lenin or Stalin or Dostoevsky or whoever, if they claim to be this person, understand that it's a prank call. Just understand that you're being pranked. Period. Is that so hard to understand? Anyway, let's do one more clown world here and we'll wrap up this video. And this clown world is coming from Reuters, and they published an article with the title, Russia Targets Netherlands North Sea Infrastructure, says Dutch intelligence agency. Dutch military intelligence agency reported that Russia in recent months has been gathering intelligence for sabotage against official infrastructure in the Dutch part of the North Sea. Oh boy. They must really think we are stupid. They must really think we are stupid. You know the funny part about this story, which I don't believe, but maybe it's true. And if it is true, well, you know, the new rules, the new rules of the game are that, courtesy of the Biden White House, are that critical infrastructure is on the table. I mean, those are the new rules. But anyway, I don't believe this story for 1 second. This is, in my opinion, this is obviously meant to distract away from Nord Stream, right? The Russians are now targeting critical infrastructure. Forget about Seymour Hersh and Nord Stream. Focus on what the Russians are about to do to the Netherlands. The tragic part about this type of narrative is that, in my opinion, it makes the Biden White House look even more guilty. It actually, to me, a story like this actually supports Seymour Hersh's claim. You know what I mean? The fact that they're having to run this type of story, the intel agency of the Netherlands is having to run interference for the Biden White House and claim that their critical infrastructure is being targeted by Russians, makes Seymour Hersh's article even more believable. It confirms it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be running with these types of stories. They wouldn't have to try to cover up Nord Stream like this in this type of way if Seymour Hersh's article was fiction. But here they are, coming out with stories that Russia is now targeting the North Sea. And they drag the Netherlands into this. Oh boy, poor Netherlands. You've been dragged into this. Why? Why did you decide to get dragged into this whole Nord Stream thing, this shameful Nord Stream sabotage? Now the Netherlands has involved themselves in this Biden plot / cover up, according to Seymour Hersh's article. But anyway, that's the clown world. I'm going to end the video there. The Duran.locals.com. We are also on Rockfin as well, and go to the Duran shop. Here we go. 10% off. Use the code. Good day. Take care.